This is Charlie Mike, the podcast. Veterans helping veterans, talking about things happening in the veteran community, things we've experienced and overcome, such as addictions, PTSD, depression, legal trouble, and we also promote veteran-owned businesses. If you're talking about it, we're talking about it. This is Charlie Mike, the podcast.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Charlie Mike, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raul, and I'm so excited. I feel like we've been on a hiatus for a little bit, changing studios and doing a lot of back work, but we're officially back, and I'm excited to have this my guest. My guest today is Alan. We've been trying to link up for a little bit of time, and Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a firefighter paramedic with Community Fire Rescue in Houston. I've been a paramedic for about 45 plus years, former Navy corpsman. I started contracting in 2005 in Iraq, and I did 5 deployments over there, and then eventually went over to Afghanistan, where I picked up a contract for delivering the mail to U.S. troops. So we wrote a book about it called Postcards Through Hell. So
I want to speak on that, and I want to learn more about it. But where are you from originally?
I was born in Toronto, Ontario. I'm a Canadian citizen. Mm-hmm. I served in the United States Navy. I've been in Texas for about 39 years.
Okay. How many years did you do in the Navy?
Just 3 years.
Don't say just 3 years. That's a long time. Yeah.
I was on a 3x6, so I only did half my tour.
Okay, I have to ask, do you play hockey?
I dabbled.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it true that every Canadian plays hockey?
No. Most Canadian hockey teams have Americans on them.
Okay. Yeah. So what brought you from Canada to the United States?
We grew up in Phoenix. Phoenix, okay. Arizona for a while.
So you were just born in Canada?
Yeah, I was just born in Canada. We immigrated to the United States. We have a very large family, and most of them were in California. And once my parents had gone back to Canada, I decided to stay. And then at that time, I joined the military. I was in the ROTC for 3 years as well, so I kind of got a leg up when I enlisted. Mm-hmm. So I got to go in as an E3. And my family had all moved back to Canada. I just after I got out of the military, I went to Canada, but I couldn't find work that sustained my income for any length of time. A lot of unions up there and whatnot. So I just came back to the United States and went to Texas. And
yeah. So what brought you to Texas?
Truthfully,
yeah.
Hispanic women.
Man, I like this guy. Yeah, that's why I've been trying to leave, man.
That's why you're trying to leave, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So are you married currently?
Oh, yeah. Just celebrated my 33rd wedding anniversary with my wife.
Congratulations.
I met her in San Antonio. I used to be an officer with Bexar County Fire, and we were working a location that required furniture, and I went into this store to buy some furniture, and there she was, and I kept asking her out, and she kept saying no, but I kept pressing, and she finally said yeah, and we got married about a year after that.
Man, that's awesome. That's congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You have any kids currently?
Yeah, 3 kids, 6 grandchildren.
Wow. Okay, this is a little on the personal side. How old are you?
65.
Man, you look good.
Yeah, I don't feel good, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. You look good. So you're still working right now?
Yeah. I'm a suppression lieutenant at Station 2. I might have mentioned this earlier that I worked the Mission Bend, A-Leaf area.
Right. So let's get back to your military. So your first time so you did 3 years in the Navy, but did you see any combat during that time?
No, never deployed.
Yeah. So it wasn't until after you got out of the military that you went into
I
combat
got out in 1981. So
okay.
Yeah, and I just started doing. I cut my teeth on 911 in Oakland, California. They used to call that the Knife and Gun Club. So I saw a lot of trauma there, and then I moved around. I was like a very diverse background as a paramedic. I've done aero medicine, I've done clinical medicine, I've done sports medicine, industrial medicine, wilderness medicine, just about everything that you can think of when it comes to being an EMT. Once I was nationally registered, of course, and then when I got to Texas at that time, they didn't recognize national registration. But it kind of opened a lot more doors. And the interesting thing is when I started contracting, I was applying for jobs as a police liaison officer. I was going to go to Iraq and train Iraqi police on checkpoint procedures and searches and things of that nature. But once they found out as a paramedic, they shifted me over to the PSD side, which is personal security detachment. And I ended up working on the shark teams with DynCorp for a couple of years.
DynCorp?
DynCorp International, yeah.
Yeah. And so what was your first rotation like? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. It was an eye-opener because I didn't have...
What year was this?
2005.
2005?
Yeah, late 2005.
And this was Iraq?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we were stationed out of Baghdad. We were right across the Tigris River from the Green Zone. And so our mission there, we had actually several different types of subcontracts. One of them was Bearing Point, where we were taking attorneys around and settling cases with local nationals. Another one was CivPol, which was all the international police liaison officers. We'd take them back and forth to the Ministry of Interior or to the shooting range where the Baghdad Police College was, and then did a lot of runs on the BIOP, which was called Route Irish, which was a pretty dangerous route at that time, to and from the airport. And then, of course, we had other VIPs and dignitaries that we ran around to different places. And the last one was the CPAT, which was all the prison wardens. And so we were making runs to all these different prisons and making sure that apparently the money that America was putting into these prisons had to be monitored and whatnot, so that these wardens were teaching these other Iraqis on how to run prisons and stuff like that. So,
and that was just your first tour. How long did you stay there, the first go round?
Well, the contract lasted a year, and then I re-signed for a second year, and I was kind of talking to my wife about kind of calling it quits. But I switched over to another company and ended up working for SOC. At that time, it was SOC SMG, which is Special Operations Consulting. But eventually, they got bought out by Day and Zimmerman, so it would be called Securing Our Country, which was the same abbreviation but different acronym.
So what did your roster look like? You worked with a lot of individuals. Let's say. Was it mainly all special forces and things of that?
Mostly, yeah. In Iraq, on the shark teams, it was a large mix of third country nationals. A majority of them were South African that were prior police defense force and special forces. New Zealand, Australia, England. We had a lot of French Foreign Legion guys. It was a very, very diverse mix of personnel. And every team, it was a 10-man team. We had 10 shark teams.
Bunch of badasses, huh?
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and that's where I met my co-author, Ed Ford. He was working for Kroll Crucible at the time, and they provided all of the in-country training for us. So they did IED awareness. They did foreign weapons handling, all of your shooting qualifications, and things of that nature. And then they would eventually go out on runs with us to evaluate the effectiveness of the training. Mm-hmm. And so him and I became really good friends. And he also worked for SOC after DynCorp and was deployed to Afghanistan. I was covering down for some medics at a FOB down in Al Hilla, and one of their teams got hit, and they didn't have a medic on board. him and the guy that I worked with in Al Hill, or it was actually at Diwania, Fob Echo. His name was Mike Hardy. Him and Ed were in Afghanistan, and they dropped my name in the hat, and I ended up going up there to fill that void.
It's night and day, huh? Between Iraq and Afghanistan.
It was a different animal, because now we're doing convoy operations that have nothing to do with PSD.
Yeah.
And so all of my experience on the job there just basically kind of sets you up for IED awareness and two-way range ambushes and stuff like that. But in Iraq, we never saw the enemy. They'd pop off a couple shots or blow an IED off or something like that, but you never saw them. In Afghanistan, we fought the Taliban, and they liked to fight. They stayed and fought. So
you were in Iraq in late 2005, and a few years after that, it was pretty hot. You didn't see any. Y'all didn't go through any.
Oh yeah, Jesus Christ, we had all kinds of shit going on. Yeah, we had teams that got hit. We did counter assault teams. We did QRF, quick reaction force. I'll have to say something. There's not really anything quick about a quick reaction force.
Man, you telling me? That's like waiting on EOD.
And then there's other PMCs like Blackwater and Aegis and different private security companies that are out there, and you're kind of coexisting with them and doing pretty much the same business. And not that it was competitive, but between DynCorp and Blackwater, they were the two big names.
So with there being so many different, I guess, corporations doing similar jobs, did y'all ever have friendly on friendly when it came just to that? Because I know sometimes the military had friendly on friendly with different organizations as well. Did y'all go through any of that?
Well, we didn't with other companies, but other companies might have done it with themselves or something. I think we had one incident that we were coming out of a prison where when the new MRAPs had come in to replace the Hummers, they were so much taller. And so everything in Iraq has got, everybody's plugging into electricity and running cable and wires, and all this stuff is really low. And we're running on a street, and we're parallel to an MRAP that's running on a couple blocks up. And then as they're going through there, they're hitting all these things, and sparks are flying and stuff like that. And I'm not sure who made the judgment or whatnot, but we got into kind of like a little bit of a firefight as we're going through these blocks, shooting back and forth and stuff. But it turns out it was, the military. Yeah. And the sparks were not gunfire or anything like that. It was just kind of a misread, so to speak. And then you just kind of get off the X and go the opposite direction, and no harm, no foul, nobody's hurt. And, and whatnot.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just taking the power.
Yeah. And then I hate to put myself on the chopping block here, but a friend of mine had sent me this laser pointer, and it's the stupidest thing, but I went up on the rooftop with a buddy of mine, and we were sitting there just shining it around, whatever. And apparently I flagged the Ministry of Interior, and they opened up with 50 cal. We're on this rooftop, and
At you guys?
At us.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And so, I just kind of like jumped down this little elevator shaft, and my South African friends with me, and everybody was kind of on my shit about one using the laser pointer, and the other one was kind of like leaving this guy behind, right? And I said, I didn't ever left him behind. He was behind me the whole time. And he goes, well, how do you know? And he was going, Fook. He was so heavily accented, So
That's too funny.
Yeah. So
So now you're in Afghanistan. What? Tell me about it. What's life in Afghanistan like? I never got to experience Afghanistan. I did Iraq for a couple of years, but never Afghanistan.
When you could be blindfolded and fly in Afghanistan, and you would know you were in Kabul.
Yeah.
They burn tree roots for lack of lumber. There's open sewage and feces everywhere. There's decomposition and dead animals, and then of course generators are producing all of this diesel, and when you combine that stuff, it has that particular odor, and you're there.
That sounds like a lovely place.
Yeah, they I think their mean average age for elderly is a lot lower because they're breathing all these carcinogens, and so it's not a healthy place to live when you're in the city.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me is they knew I was coming up. And when I arrived, there was nobody at the airport to pick me up. and it's kind of like trial by fire. They were actually out on a mission to recover one of their vehicles that had been hit in a previous ambush, and so nobody was available. So I ended up hopping into a taxi with somebody that I didn't know. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even have an address. I just knew the name. And so this guy, this taxi driver, I mean, he could have taken me right to the Taliban headquarters and sold me off for some change or whatever. But I finally went down this one street and I saw a guy wearing a sock uniform, and I go, there it is. I was in this cab for like an hour and 40 minutes just driving around trying to find this freaking villa. And I lucked out. I got there and everything, and I think my bill was like $40. You know, I threw some change at him, and I didn't even know if I tipped him. But I got there, and then I was there for about an hour when the team that was supposed to pick me up finally showed up, and I was going, hey, what the fuck, guy? So that was my orientation. And then we went right into running these missions. Initially, they just had some thin skin and up armored vehicles. The Tahoes, or not Tahoes, but Toyota Land Cruisers.
Right.
And then they finally had ordered some Ford F-550 gun trucks that arrived. They were white colored. There was it was a learning curve. They had sent a trainer named Dave Gengenbach, who ended up being my driver at the time. And he trained us on off-road driving and all kinds of tactical driving. The Achilles heel on this thing was the flat bottom.
Yeah.
It's a catastrophic takedown if you hit an IED.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Most of them had the V holes that you would prefer, but they served their purpose. They were quick vehicles and loud as hell. I mean, they eventually painted them black, so we could run missions at nighttime and kind of like reduce our visual signature, but they were loud. So, I mean, we might have had the element of surprise when we were going there, but the Taliban knew when we were going to have to take the same route back.
Right.
And so it was on.
So tell me a little bit about this, the Pony Express. How and just how?
Well, initially we were running critical supplies to support military infrastructure to ODA sites, Operational Detachment Alpha. We had a great deal of success where other people had failed, and eventually we got the U.S. mail contract. So the military was tasked with delivering the mail, but it wasn't a priority for them. And
Right.
so a lot of times if they're out doing recon missions or other types of missions, the mail would sit for an extended period of time, and kind of like troop morale is going downhill and whatnot. So they contracted out to us. And we had a 98% success rate on our drops. We still delivered all of this other thing, fuel, ammo, weapons, even vehicles, but we always tacked the mail onto it as well. So we made these runs, and they started to call us the Pony Express. I actually named the book the Pony Express, but there's, I guess, a group that had a trademark on it or something, and we got a cease and desist letter saying we couldn't use that, so we changed the name to Postcards Through Hell. And that was the priority, was to deliver the mail.
Well, that's a badass name too. Postcards Through Hell.
Oh, well, it's going through hell, delivering the mail. It's a lot. The thing that's interesting about it is nobody knew about it. I mean, occasionally, gate guards saw trucks coming in, but they don't know what the cargo is.
Right.
We go to the post office box and we drop the mail off, and then we leave, and then the military would go get their mail. They don't know how it got there. So, I mean, even if you were in Afghanistan from, let's say, 2009 to 2012, it was a 90% chance we delivered the mail there.
Wow.
So,
yeah, and like you say, it's a big morale bust.
yeah, morale booster.
Booster.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. People don't understand, because a lot of times, sometimes there's no access to internet. There's just no access to internet, and letters was the way it used to be done.
Yeah, I think the Washington Post did a story on it right around Christmas time, and I think people at that particular fob, when it was another team that had done this delivery, but it was these guys were lining up, and they were so happy to get these gifts and letters, and when you think about the risk that we took, if you were wondering about what it's like. I on a personal level, if I got a letter, it was really important to me, and I think to myself, is that something worth dying for? Mm-hmm. Of course, it was. So.
Hey, yeah, it's crazy to think about on this side, because I think about the times in Iraq, and I never really thought about how the mail or anything along those lines got to us. It was just there. Yeah. So the whole story, Postcards Through Hell, is based on one experience or a bunch of experiences?
Multiple experiences. It's basically the story of my team leader, Ed Ford. He's a 22-year Marine recon battalion. And, aside from our friendship, our brotherhood, when he went over to Afghanistan, he picked up basically the convoy side. They did have a little PSD element, but it was tasked to some other guys. And so he had a lot of experience, and he had a great team. And when the company expanded, they started putting up more teams. And so my job there was, to train all the other guys up to speed on combat lifesaver, kind of put their medical program together, get supplies, do safe havens, med outs, route mapping, navigation, things of that nature. We didn't have a lot of stuff, so we depended on the military for support in that area. We had medical supplies that were expired, but we still ended up using them. I mean, I always use the good stuff on my guys and the bad stuff on the bad guys.
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing. And whatever we couldn't get, we a lot of times we would make a run to a fob, and I'd go to the battalion aid station and hook up with the medic there and tell them, hey, we're hurting for this, we're hurting for that, and they would give me stuff. And in my pack, I have to have enough medical supplies to support a 10-man team for 72 hours.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. I think I lost about an inch and a half in height from wearing all that damn gear.
You're serious too.
60 pounds of ballistic protection and another 35 pounds of med gear. It's like it takes its toll on you after a while.
Yeah. What was you were there in Afghanistan and you said, I'm done. I want to go home. Was there a particular moment that made you realize that, or was that you just felt it?
Well, it wasn't by my choice. They picked up a contract with a company that required a security clearance, which I didn't have. I could have stayed, but they would have taken me out the medic slot and put me in as a shooter. So then I'm going to even make less money, since I'm a third country national, not an American. And so that to me was one of those risk benefits type of a deal. It wasn't really worth the risk considering the amount of money that I was making. So I ended up leaving that contract and then coming back at a later date when it was bought out by a different company. They didn't require the security clearance at the time. I didn't know when I had applied for this job. I had just applied for a convoy operations, but I didn't recognize the company name. And so when I got there, I found out it was my old crew.
Oh, wow.
And it was, same trucks, same contract, different T-shirt, and so I went back on board doing the same thing, just under a different name.
Wow. Yeah. That, what was the last time that you were actually in Afghanistan?
December of 2012.
Okay. With
the contract period ended in 2016. We wrote the book from 2009 to 2012. We had 8 additional chapters that had mentioned certain ambushes and missions, and but because the contract was classified, we had to take those chapters out. Mm-hmm. So the owner held us to our non-disclosure agreement. Plus, we had to get all that stuff declassified. And so, at the time of the writing, we finished the book about 7 years ago, but it took us like 3 years to get published. So it was a real pain in the ass. So that post period 2012 is not mentioned in the book, but I got to give credit out to all my brothers that ran that contract. They're stand-up guys all the way around. We just couldn't mention their names.
Over the past few years, we saw the pullout in Afghanistan.
Oh, geez, clusterfuck.
Yeah. man, you spending so much time over there, probably building some relationships with some people. How did that affect you? I know that had to hurt in some way because it was exactly what you said, a clusterfuck.
When I transitioned from Kandahar, I was in Kandahar at the time when my contract expired with DynCorp, and that's why I was looking for a job in country. And when I got it, they flew me from there, and I stayed at the Baron Hotel, and that's exactly the point where that bomb was placed. So I had some familiarity with it. But when they had announced it, the first thing that I had said was, "This is a huge mistake to do a withdrawal like that." And there was no planning.
None.
Basically, they had access to other airports that they could have distributed so much the demobilization of the troops, and it was just a total cluster. And then look at all the money that they had left behind. Look at all the people that had worked for the United States that were now exposed to the Taliban. Look at all the equipment that turned out to be used against us and other people at a later time. It was just like, what can you say? What can you do? So,
and it's still being used till this day. The equipment that we left behind,
Yeah, I don't know. To the Taliban's credit, I would hate to say that was their lack of familiarity with some of the technical equipment, which turned out to be an okay. But then again, when you just talked about beans and bullets, they were able to capitalize on that stuff. So it was a bad move all the way around.
Definitely. So if there's a particular chapter in the book that stands out, which one, or is there, or you just say all of it?
Well, it's very well written. We're not writers; we're knuckle draggers.
Yeah.
And so when we decided to put pen to paper, I guess the first benefit was we figured out that it was really therapeutic. And so I'm basically establishing a timeline of all of these things from the startup to when we decided to end the book. And I'm writing chapters, and I'm sending them up to Ed, and he's telling me this is right, this is that. Oh, I forgot that, and whatever. He'd send it back to me, and I would write it. And we finally got to a manuscript that was tangible, and so we sent it to an editor, and that was a back and forth thing for a long time. And she never really wrote anything. She just told us. She gave us some really good advice. When I took a couple of creative writing classes, start with an action point, end with a hook. Have a theme, brotherhood, blah, blah, blah. And it actually materialized into something that was really good. So the interesting thing is it's a true story. It's not based on a true story where you're throwing in this fiction and trying to make it more interesting. So we start off with the first chapter is basically putting the reader in the driver's seat. We some missions that we ran. So they understand exactly the nature of the business, and then we go into the next chapter, which is describing the routes, and then we have another chapter which talks about the mission brief, because everybody has responsibilities on recon, weapons preparation, fuel preparation, route preparation, alternate route preparation, all that stuff that everybody has to do, and they don't think about it. It's very labor intensive, and these team leaders had to do even more work, which was billeting and they handled, we'd run missions with $10,000 in cash. So we'd run and get out of jail free cards kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then we list them by contact. So we have a contact, it'd say RPG, or mine strike or small arms fire or indirect fire. And we listed all these contacts to date. But what was most interesting, the two things that were interesting is one, the editor had mentioned that we didn't have any female perspective. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going, wow, okay, what are you talking about? There weren't any women on the contracts. So what do you want to, what are you talking about? And I said, well, what about your wives? What did they feel like, when you were gone? Or what about the mothers of the guys that had been killed in action? So we ended up conducting about 22-something interviews, just to get feedback from their point of view. And we created a chapter called Calling All Wives. But I think the most interesting thing about the book is the Foot Locker. There's a lot of pressure that's on a team leader, and Ed had to suppress that in order to be effective. And he couldn't let his team know that he had to deal with, the psychological impact. And so what he would do is, like, every time he got an ambush, he would pick up some kind of a momentum, something to remind him basically of the ambush. So he'd throw it into that footlocker and continue on. And eventually it got to the point where the nature of these attacks were increasing in frequency and in complexity. So, I mean, you might have, roll over a mine or something like that, and you have a couple of guys that are injured. You get off the X, you take care of business. Then the next time you get a guy, that gets killed, you got to deal with that. And then you get an attack where it's a controlled detonation, and it involves some people that you know really well. So now you've got close friends that are getting killed. And so every time that he would put something into that footlocker, it got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, then we had one incident where 5 guys were killed in one hit, and I think that's the time. It had climaxed to the point where he decided to get out of the game because he was going to be the next one on the slab. And that was important to mention. So that's how we did it. It's like when we talked about these things, we always mentioned what was the item that he had put into the footlocker. Was it a bloody schmog or a broken cell phone? And we even have a thing called a heart of stone, where this rock that got broken in half, they put it together and it makes a heart shape. And he had thrown that in there. And the last time that he had to identify a really good friend of his, he just dreaded opening that footlocker. And when he finally did, he broke down, and he's just said, I got to get out of this. I'm going to be next. And so that's basically how we kind of closed it out. Of course, we ended up leaving, the list of the guys that had been killed. And, it was important for us to honor them in some way that obviously the third country nationals never really got the benefit of that. They were treated like cargo. If you weren't a veteran or, had anything to do with the military system, they just shipped you home. The company didn't even bother to make notifications. In some cases, you either get it by mail or a police officer's knocking on your door to let you know that somebody had died. And I'm just going, yeah, this really sucks. My end goal outside of that is I want to, maybe since we're delivering the mail, since they called us the Pony Express, I'm hoping to get maybe some kind of a commemorative stamp that we can honor them further. And so we have to go through some channels and talk to some people and whatnot, and hopefully we can get that done.
How's that coming along?
Well, interesting thing is one of the guys that gave us an endorsement is Patrick Donahoe. He was, at the time that we were delivering, he was the 73rd U.S. Postmaster General of the United States, but he never knew that we were the ones delivering the mail. And so when I talked to him about getting an endorsement, he goes, "Well, I thought the military did that." I said, "Yeah, but the military or Department of Defense went ahead and subbed it out to us." And so I sent him a copy of the book, and he read it, and he gave us this glowing endorsement. And so I think it's kind of a foot in the door for me. I haven't approached him about my end goal, but I'm pretty sure he can tell me what procedures I need to go through in order to get that done. So, and then of course we've got a couple of offers for like a film adaptation. And documentary or docuseries from a couple of high-ranking people. We got endorsements from Dale Dye, Captain Dye.
Yeah, I saw that.
And some pretty heavy hitters. And we've got 5-star reviews. We're just not a bestseller yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's what do you think that is from? Is it just from lack of awareness or promotion? I mean,
I'll tell you, it's when we signed our publication contract, marketing was dumped into our lap.
Oh, so you were learning as you were going.
Yeah, shit. I had to learn how to write the book. Then I had to learn how to publish the book, and now I got to learn how to market the book. It's a painstaking process. And like I said, we're shooters.
Right.
We're not admin types,
we're not poets.
Yeah, and so, well, warrior poets.
Yeah, there you go.
So we split the share of the workload. Ed's in Oregon, and so he's covering the northwestern side of it, and I'm down here in Texas, and then of course we've got some other people kind of helping us out with the endorsements. We do podcasts, radio talk shows, book signings, and things like that. But it's just not as well, we're not traditional authors, so we don't have a big name for one.
Right.
And then, we don't want to do any vanity press because they'll go ahead and write anything. And so finding the publisher is the key. So once this contract ends, we'll probably end up signing with, a veteran-owned publication company that's going to give us more in terms of our royalties so that we can reinvest back into the book and try to get it out there. So the rest of it is all budget driven.
Right.
So, and we just don't have enough money to do, some mainstream stuff. Obviously, if it gets made into a movie or a documentary, that's going to help quite a bit as well. So.
I want to, after the show, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of people. Email you. I want to get you on another podcast with a buddy of mine.
Oh, right.
Real popular here in Houston, and he's an author as well, and I think that y'all will have a lot to talk about.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So after everything is, I don't want to say it like that. After everything is done, you're done now. Man, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. The interesting thing is,
really, how are you doing?
I'm doing. Yeah, it was weird. You don't want to talk about my driving habits when I got back. I'd be going down the road and I'd see a dead animal and I'd just swerve to the other side. And my wife's going, "What the hell are you doing?" I thought it was an IED shit.
Yeah.
Or you do stupid things at dinner. You say pass the fucking salt instead of, So all that bad stuff kind of catches up to you. But I'm not having flashbacks. Ed's doing okay. We did have a couple of guys post deployment that didn't end well for them. And of course we include that. There's kind of like an honor to them post deployment, and it's important to mention. But as a contractor, you don't get the same types of services that veterans do. I mean, if you are a veteran, you might be able to capitalize on some things through the VA, but that mechanism isn't available. We fall under DBA, and most of that stuff is either going to be injury related or burn pit bullshit.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that psychological impact, the PTSD side of it. So we have a group. It's a private group with the 75 of us that ran those mobile operations, and we talk to each other on a regular basis. We have the Pony Express where anybody can join if they're interested in learning about stuff that we went through, and we post all kinds of things, book related. And then if anybody has a problem, they can reach out to us at any time. We're there in terms of brotherhood and what kind of support that we can offer on a personal level. But I'm okay. Writing the book was therapeutic, like I had mentioned before. But the rest of it is just kind of waiting it out. I read this book like 10,000 times because I wrote it. And so it's just trying to get the point across. About the nature of the business. It's a business. War is a business, and so we're on the business side of it. And all of the minuscule things that we had to deal with in order to be successful, like having an Afghanistan counterpart in order to even operate in that country, having to include, our shooters were local nationals, our drivers were third country nationals, and so now we've got this really weird kind of a thing where, you have to trust somebody that you can't really trust. There's a lot of proxy shootings and proxy bombings and things. And so you never turned your back on anybody. But when we came back, we were successful in decompression. I worked clinical medicine, for next level urgent care for about 4 years. That was really beneficial because I still got to do medicine, but I wasn't in a combat environment, and so I was able to kind of settle down. And then Ed was working for Lowe's, and now he's delivering the mail, but for FedEx.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, but
a whole different way.
Yeah. But we have a really high degree of psychological resilience.
Good.
Doing that kind of stuff, and the nature of the business is what I do as a medic. So I've been around trauma all my life.
Yeah.
I might have been burned out a couple of times, but I would never really think that it was anything PTSD related.
Right. Okay. Man, that's good. Alan, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
I really appreciate you having me.
And speaking with you. I'm going to make those connections after this, and we'll get that rolling. But again, you guys, some of the subject that we talked on today was very sensitive, and always remember that you're not alone, and it's okay not to be okay. If you are in crisis, always remember the suicide hotline is 988. You can call or text. As always, thank you for tuning in, and Charlie Mike.
Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? It is me, Soldier Hardwood, Redcon One Music Group, and thank you for listening to Charlie Mike, the podcast. Yay!